This is Mrs. Libby here. I miss you all. I can't wait to see you all again. We are going to be working on word work together. So I'm posting this video for review of our letter sounds. And I would like you all to watch the video just to review your letter sounds before we start our other work that we're going to do together. So let's get started. A couple of things. Mrs. Libby does not review her sounds in alphabetical order. I mix it all up because I like to know, I like to be sure that you all know your sounds. And Mrs. Libby has two colors in her pile, and we'll talk about the two different colors in our pile. And let's get started, okay? So let's go. First letter is C. C says K, and K is in the back of your throat. K. M, M, your lips are together. M, M says We have a new color. It's the letter E. E says, and Mrs. Libby likes to do little tricks to remind you on our vowels. We push our corners of our mouth back. E says eh. So when Mrs. Libby wants to know if you remember that sound, I might go like this to remind you that it goes back. E says eh. Now let's think about it. Why does E have a yellow color? What's special about E? Do you know? E is a vowel. And so vowels are special because vowels say more than one sound. They say two. So when you see our videos, we'll talk about the other sounds, but my class knows that E says eh, back, and E says its name, E. So when you see this card, E says eh, E says E. Next color, next card, F. F says F. This gets tricky with V, so I always like to make sure that you know that F. I'm not really, it's a kind of a breath sound. Make sure that breath is still coming through your teeth. F. My teeth are on my lip. F. And the breath. F. Okay, F. P says P. P says P. Here's another vowel. This one is A. For the letter A, I like to go like this, so I know that I have to open my mouth wide. A says A. A says A. Remember, vowels have two sounds. Here's the letter O. For O, Mrs. Libby likes to do an O with her mouth because that's actually what you do when you say the sound for O. O says ah. O says ah. And O says O. Two sounds. H. H says it's a breath too. H says R says R. Some of my friends like to say R, but I always like to cut it short, so R, R. J. J says J. J says J. S. S says S. S says S. K. K says K as well. Two sounds. K. K. T says T. X says X. White, Y, this card, white, Y. Y says Y. W says W. W says W. I, here's another vowel. So for this one, I like to do an itch because itch starts with I. So when you get confused and I say I like to go like this. I says I. I says I. V says V. So V, you're going to vibrate between when your teeth get on your lips. V. It kind of tickles. Z says Z. D says D. Now, if you notice, my D has a little fancy leg because some friends confuse B and D. So when Mrs. Libby's writing, I like to use that fancy leg so I know that D has a little leg. Okay, so it's not super fancy, it's just a little trick to remind us that D says D, and that's the letter D. U says so you, for you, I like to do a little like I got kind of hit in the belly because that's kind of the sound you make. So U says U says you. N says N. G says G. G says G. Q is together because you cannot spell a word that starts with Q without the U. My class read a book, The Wedding of Q and U. We were invited. They know that you cannot spell a word. So when you see Mrs. Libby's card, you're going to say, wait, Q's not with U. But when we spell with words and when we read words, you'll notice that Q and U are always together. So they're married for life. Q says qua. Here is B. B says B. B says B. L says L. And here's the yellow Y. My class knows that Y can say two sounds because sometimes it acts like a vowel. And when it acts like a vowel, sometimes it says E. So Y says E. So I like to review our sounds before we move on to, taking apart words, putting them together. Every day I'm going to be adding some new to our pile, but this is kind of the original pile that I would like you to review, and we're going to be adding on. So check out the next video so we can do some real fun things with words, and see you next time. Okay, bye.